The following podcast is brought to you exclusively by the Rad Rob Radio Network. Imagine a place where mental health, resilience, sports. The show is about life. It's about mental health. It's about bouncing back stronger than ever. This is Reset and Rise to the Unbreakable with Amanda Moore.
Hey guys, welcome back to Reset and Rise to the Unbreakable with Amanda Moore. I am your host, Rad Rob Francois, along with the one and only, the truly unbreakable Amanda Moore. What's going on, Amanda?
Not much, just another week, and we've hit the weather where it's cold in the morning and warm in the afternoon. So currently I already have 3 sweaters / jackets in my work truck. Shedding layers. So
well, it's still hot as Hades here in Middle Tennessee, so I wish we could get a break from the hot air. It's so humid. I'm so over it. I'm just tired of sweating.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to fall, but I'm not at the same time. So,
well, yeah. That's fair. So let everybody know real quick, how'd you end up bowling this weekend?
I did really good Friday night, I guess you could say. And then Saturday morning I did okay, but I did worse than Friday. And then Saturday night I just was, I don't know, I got in my own head and then I mentally checked out, and that's on me, not on anybody else. So at that point I was cheering on the other females to stay in the cut within the divisions. So maybe I could be high female out of that, the women's division cut. And that didn't happen. I missed the cut by 19 pins.
Oh.
So came home feeling a little deflated because last year I missed the cut by 6 pins. So just when I think I'm going to do better and everything is going to get better, something changes. But
is it your first tournament back?
Yeah, since May.
I mean, come on now. I mean,
it's okay. I'm going to change the setting here. I know I changed the setting to mirror so you could read my 9-line apparel sweatshirt, but I don't like that setting. I feel awkward. No, but it was good. I got to see a lot of people I don't get to see very often from Colorado and Utah and different parts of Idaho. So it was great. And their tournaments are always spicy. They're challenging to say the least. And it was fun. It's just, I still have some things I need to work on. And obviously my mental game is a lot better than where it was when I left last May, but it's still not where I'd like it to be.
Yeah.
So I might reach back out to a sports psychologist I've worked with previously to see if I can get some help with that. But other than that, it was okay. I'm looking forward to league tomorrow night. It seems like anytime you go to a really hard tournament on a sport pattern, you come back to league seems like a million times easier. So hopefully I put up some good scores, but
that's because it is. But
yeah. So how have you been? Good? Just
living the dream, hanging in there, enjoying my time off. It is what it is.
Yeah.
We're going on vacation next week, and I think we're going to record tomorrow. So we're actually going to have a show for y'all next week while I'm in Florida.
Yep. And I think to let the cat out of the bag, I think what we're going to talk about is my journey with body dysmorphia and an eating disorder. I think that's something really important. We have quite a few female followers. So I think that's something we need to talk about, but it's not just females that struggle with that, it's males as well. So I think covering that would be great. And people seem to really like to listen to things they can relate to, which is what our show's about. So I think that's what we're going to go with after I thought about it today and reached out to put a few feelers out with people. And so anyways, but if we want to get started with tonight's guest, Aaron Smith, that would be awesome.
All right. Before we bring him in, we always do kind of like a, how did you find this guy? Okay. So how did you find our guest tonight?
So Aaron and I were just talking about it prior. On social media, how you can watch reels and videos randomly pop up. Okay. So there was a video of Aaron with the US Sniper Association, which was totally random that reel popped up and another random find. Yep. And he was talking about the amputation of his leg and being in a wheelchair for a little while, and kind of the backstory to him, and talking a little bit about resiliency. And I'm like, wow, this guy would be really good to be on the show. So naturally found him on social media. And he is a part of the US Sniper Association. So I found him, friend requested him, messaged him, and next thing you know, he was like, I'd be honored to be on your show. Once again, I'm like, I don't understand why somebody's honored to be on our show, but he has a very interesting story. He got into a motorcycle accident in 2021 and had his left leg amputated on scene. That is life-changing right there in itself. Yeah. He's served 4 combat tours, and he's earned multiple Navy and Marine Corps achievement medals. He is an astounding guy that has really turned his life's journey into a purpose. He dedicates tons of time everywhere. His 4 children are his pride and joy. You can definitely see that in everything that he does daily. And I believe he's out of North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. But he's a very resilient man. He is the epitome of what this show is about. So I can't wait to talk to him.
Well, let's not wait any longer. Let's bring him in. Please welcome our very special guest, Aaron Smith. Good evening, Aaron. Thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Amanda, kick it off.
Okay. Aaron, so I just had one question. I have this.
Just one question?
Yeah, I have more than one question, but I pre-wrote one question in specific. I just wanted to say, can you share a little bit about your journey into the Marine Corps and what drew you to serve our country?
So I grew up in a military family. Both my parents were Navy, but I had all the branches covered. So ever since I was a little kid, it was pretty much going to be the direction I was going anyways. And then as I grew up, it just became more solidified and basically my personality and what I wanted to do. 9/11 happened and I was a senior in high school and I was sitting in homeroom and I remember they pushed in the old tube TV on the stand, right? Like I'm that old, right? With the VCR on it. But they turned on the news. And so we're watching and I see the towers and I see the smoke, but there was no preface to this is real life, like we're about to show you. So it was just another one of those, they're just putting on something random because the teacher wanted to. And it wasn't until we realized what was really happening real time. And then a few weeks later, I signed up in the delayed entry program. I took the ASVAB and everything. Did fairly well. I had the different recruiters calling, and then I pretty much told them all I'm going Marine Corps infantry. And they're like, well, you realize we're going to war, right? I was like, well, that's why I'm going Marine Corps infantry, So I joined the Marine Corps in 2002, went through boot camp, went to the invasion in 2003 with Task Force Tara and 3-2. Went through to Baghdad. Big ones like Nasiriyah. That one was the bloodiest until Fallujah. And I don't know if you guys remember that time, like Jessica Lynch. And it was really big. So that I was there for that. Like I was in Nasiriyah, and then they sent CAG and stuff in to go and get her. But then after I came back is when I went through the screener for the Scout Sniper platoon and got picked up there. So went through the screener, got selected, went off to school, passed school, and then went out to Afghanistan. Came back, did 2 more deployments after that, out to Iraq. Went out to a bunch of other units, did some stuff for at the warfighting lab with DARPA. Then I became an officer. Did the officer thing for a little while, just significantly different. I will say that. They tried to get me go back infantry, and at that point I was like, man, I'm 30 years old. Like this is the young man's game. Like the young guys, the Lance Corporals and the PSCs, right? The majority rank is like the 18 to early 20 age is like the greatest proportion. So I was like, these dudes are going to way outpace, anything I can do right now. So, but I went to a different side where I was controlling aircraft in proximity to ground troops, integrating fires. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so after I got out, I worked civilian side for a little while, and it was just because it wasn't really the same. And then COVID happened. So that switched up a lot of things.
So were you interested remotely in doing Scout Sniper work initially when you joined, or was that just something that advanced as you joined the Marine Corps?
So, when you go into the Marine Corps, when I went in, it was different. You couldn't really, it's not like some of the other branches, right, where you can contract to go in straight to go to buds, or, you can contract as a kid to go be a ranger. Like, you still have to pass all those things, but you get contracted a chance. And the Marine Corps doesn't do that. And so you go in you can contract as whatever MOS, you go through boot camp, and then when you go through your school, right, it's just infantry. So, if you're going to go, if you want to do reconnaissance, if you want to do back then force reconnaissance, you want to do MARSOC, you want to be a Marine Scout Sniper, you had to go infantry, and that was the base. So from there, then you went and ran your screener, so that if you didn't make any of those, that was your default, was back to infantry. So my plan was just, go to infantry, go fight, right? The Marine Corps doesn't really recruit and advocate special forces and different things as much as some of the other branches do. There's getting more, they're starting to do more of it now that we have MARSOC, but it wasn't something that was as well known.
And for people that don't know what that is, what does that stand for? What's
that, MARSOC?
MARSOC, yes.
So that's Marine Special Operations Command. So the Marine Corps now has its own, well, we had it before, but the re-stood up Raiders. So we have another mission within the special operations community. But so now with those things for the Marine Corps starting to do a little bit more of the advertising of special operations capabilities. But predominantly that's what you see almost with every Army recruiting commercial, almost every Navy recruiting commercial. But the Marine Corps, it's not as well known back then, especially. So my plan was just go infantry, go fight, and then take my career wherever I went from there, whatever opportunities presented themselves.
So as a Scout Sniper, what are both the challenges and the moments that you're most proud of when as you were a Scout Sniper?
So, the challenges are many and they're varied. You have challenges at every phase of it, whether it be through the indoctrination period of it, through the screener, through school. I will say for the schools, it was very different from the other schools I've been into, because the other schools are much more like kind of phase out, right? They'll break everything in. We'll start off slow with the PT. We'll start off slow with the academics, and then we'll start skills bridging from there, gradually building into it. But then when it went through Scout Sniper School, it was immediately everything's rock run. Everything you have is on your back, and you're running everywhere you go. Everything's was a very academic intensive. So just shooting all morning, blitzkrieg of information all afternoon. Next morning, you're ripping tests. So, and then it just progressed from there. So it was a very different course too. When you start out in the military, you're gonna pass, right? And they'll just recycle you. But when you start getting into higher level schools or different schools, they don't. They'll just drop you, goodbye. That was your opportunity. You might be lucky enough to get one more crack at it down the line, but generally it's one and done. So it's a different ball game. It's a whole level of seriousness, and you have to be ready for it.
Yeah, it definitely would take somebody that's very self-motivated and dedicated, and as well as passionate into something that they want to actually pursue and do. So.
But the deployments are entirely different too. So that's where the challenge really lies, right? It's all about once you're operating. A deployment within the infantry battalion during the invasion, even, you have, regardless of what it is, you have a lot of firepower. You have a lot of Marines to your left, Marines to your right. You have all different types of fire support. You have different maneuver elements. You might have artillery fire support. You might even have air on station. So you have a very robust capability that is sustainable in any basic prolonged engagement. However, when you're operating in a Marine Scout Sniper platoon, we were doing ops with as little as 3 of us, and then the most we ever did was 9, and that's when stuff got really hairy. Or wherever we're going, we knew we're out of range of any fire support. So the only
people that were going to be there in a fight was going to be ourselves. So 3 of us, 4 or 5 of us, that just wasn't tenable. At least it wasn't safe, right? And wasn't smart. So sometimes we beef up to 9, and then just have to hold out, or start booking it, and then meet your evac. So the challenge is we're really having to do more with a lot less. All right, we didn't have, not like special forces. We don't have all the newest equipment. We don't have all the air on station that we need or want. Or we don't have drones. We don't have anything on station most of the time. It's just us. And we're lucky if we get comms back sometimes, depending on how, because they're far enough, or, depending on the terrain, or if we're in an urban environment. So even sometimes we're without comm shots for a significant period of time. So that becomes a lot more of a difficulty that I found between being a Marine Scout Sniper versus others.
Were you just running Recon, or were you actually going on sniper missions?
All of them. So reconnaissance, surveillance, and target acquisition are some of the bigger mission sets. So the Marine Scout Sniper MOS is no longer a thing in the Marine Corps. It just recently got phased out. Now the capability itself is still very much alive. Reconnaissance, MARSOC, the Raiders, they still have those capabilities of weapons. They still go to different schools. They still maintain the craft. But it is very different operating as a Marine Scout Sniper, because that's your sole job, right? Reconnaissance men, that sniping is just a capability that they might add on to a mission set depending on what they're doing.
Right.
Same with the other ones. But Marine Scout Sniper, your job is that to hunt men.
Okay.
So it adds a different spin to things. But reconnaissance is a large part, right? So at that level that we operate at, we are an infantry organic capability, reconnaissance capable. So we have more training in that. The battalion commander that normally just has regular line, just regular infantrymen under him, or machine gunners, etc., doesn't have really the closest thing to reconnaissance element that he has available. So a lot of the times we would get sent in ahead of missions to verify targets, verify ingress routes, verify intel. A lot of times we get sent in ahead of time and do target softening. Was a big thing in their Iraq days. We would go ahead, we'd have an intelligence package. These are the alleged targets. We go in there, verify, and then call in airstrikes, soften the targets, pull out. And then when the main force comes in, they're coming into a much more subdued environment. So that was a big kind of asymmetrical thing that we started doing in the Iraq days, because it was a very kinetic environment. You only had what you had. The commanders only had what they had. So the Marine Corps is always do more with less. So we just kind of had to figure it out. Surveillance is a big one, right? Prolonged surveillance is a big capability that we have. And that's where the small teams come in, right? Small teams with reconnaissance, the larger the element you have, the harder it is to stay under the radar.
True. So
when you talk about Marine Scout Snipers, it's smaller elements, because if somebody knows we're there, the gig is up. That's it. You're blown. That's the whole reason you're being there. So you're trying to go as small, as light as you can for, given what the environment is like.
So I have a question. With everything that you've been through in your time in the military, what's one lesson from being in the military that you carry with you daily still to this day?
Ooh, that's a good one. So honestly, in thinking about kind of prepping to have the discussion with you guys, I would say that it's chicken and the egg, right? And I say that because the people that go into the military already have something different about them to begin with. And you're talking about less than 1% of the population for a reason. Majority of people that go into the military is like anybody that kind of goes into being a nurse or a doctor or a teacher. There's a calling besides just that profession, which is, why they're drawn to it. So militarily, there's that calling of service, but then you have to be a little bit more robust of an individual to begin with. And especially once you start tinkering with things like either the Marine Corps in general or, special operations, or just kind of the closer to the tip you get, right? The little bit more gusto it takes. but then on the backside, it solidifies mindset and heart, right? Like you learn that things could always be worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, but two, like things have been worse also, right? So it gives you a wide range of skill sets, but then a wide range of suck that you have dealt with your entire career, whether it be the suck that you go through from recruit training through whatever schools or through combat, right? Like the adversity that you're put in is unlike anything else on the planet. So if you can survive that adversity, well, then you can survive the adversity that I'm in now.
So I just want to know, with that being said too, how do you balance the pride of serving with some of the difficult memories that come with combat experience?
So there was a good 7 years, maybe 5 years. I didn't even maybe touch base once, maybe twice. And I live 30 minutes up the road from it.
Oh, wow.
You know, I say the area because my children and then my wife was a teacher on base. So anyway, I stayed away from all of it for at least 5 years because it was just the transition was very hard for me. I wasn't ready to get out. You know, I could have stayed in even longer, but that's just not the way my family situation was. So it was hard for me because I wasn't ready to be out to begin with. And then two, when I was out, there is a very large disconnect between us and the average civilian, which becomes more evident, right? Like people talk about it, but it does become quite evident in some workspaces. So, you know, I stayed away because it was easier to have that distance than to have to be close but not apart. But after I lost my leg is when I started getting pulled back. And I've been back in the community and I've been on the board for the Marine Corps Scout Sniper Association for the last couple of years. So now I'm fully back in it. You know, I go to, you know, all different manner of events, active duty events to just our association events. And it's great being back. And so the wound, that time and being to the right side of bang, if you will, the longer I've been out and the more I've kind of had to deal with other situations, the easier it's been. So now it's not an issue recalling those things really.
Yeah. So speaking of losing your leg in 2021, can you walk us through what happened in 2021 with your motorcycle accident and how you processed the news about your amputation? Because you said it happened on scene. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. So
that's nuts.
So to understand the accident, you have to understand that I was free falling basically off a cliff mindset wise at the time. I had a complete crisis of who I even was, because I went from being a Marine, right? And it was just very identity focused, like it, and then to not being a Marine, and then to not being anything because COVID happened. So then I became a stay-at-home dad. So then it was just complete loss of, I don't know what I am, what my purpose is anymore. So, you know, there's a quote that basically said that 20 minutes of combat is more than a lifetime in any other occupation. You know, and the things that you experience there make it so that nothing else seems the same anymore, right? You find yourself like chasing that. You know, when I went through combat, the way I responded, I guess, was, you know, my endorphins and my dopamine dumps and everything that got me ready. Like if it got close enough, my autonomic response was just to kind of laugh. You know, it didn't really bother me. I respected it, but you know, for my fourth one, I volunteered to go back. So for me, it was something I kept wanting to go back to. You know, for us, that's the only time you get to do your job.
Yeah.
So, you know, but it's a test. And the quote goes on to say that, yes, in war, you can die, that happens. But it's when you get to find out whether or not you get to continue living. And so it's the inverse. It's not the fear of death, but it's the excitement that you've gone that far and you get to continue living, and it just excites you. Life becomes more exciting. But once you lose that, then everything else kind of becomes a lot more bland. So, you know, combat made it so, getting out of the Marines, I lost my identity. Combat made it so everything else just seemed a lot more bland. Nothing really excited me. Having to repress a lot of the traumatic things that happened during those tours made it so that your brain, right, in order to kind of get through that, numbs your responses to all those things, but it also numbs your ability to find joy and happiness. So then I started pushing the envelope with my own safety. And so I started riding in the club life. And so then I'm riding for a 1% motorcycle club and pushing it, right, because it's the closest thing that's kind of getting me to that feeling of combat. So I'm putting myself in positions that most people wouldn't, again, because I have that desire. And then, it's late at night. At this point, I'm coming home. It's the middle of the week. It's like 4 a.m. and the weather's foggy. So because of what I'm doing, I'm putting myself in a position I shouldn't have even been out riding in to begin with. Shouldn't have been out that late. The weather, I couldn't even see anything. So I'm on the way home, and I had to get home because I was a stay-home dad at that point. And I had to get home because I had to be home for my kids. My wife had to go to work, and I had to be there to get my kids off to school. So it's 4 a.m. And it's just horrible visibility. And I'm riding back, and the next thing I know, I feel where it's like no longer on hardball, and I'm ripping it going down a highway. So I'm going, 60, 55, 60. And so when I corrected, all of a sudden it's just the hard impact, just wham. And I hit that guardrail. So, I woke up, and I'm laying on my back, and I can hear in my headphones, like connected, disconnected, connected. So I knew I wrecked. I know I'm laying on my back. I know my phone is close enough in range that there's still some Bluetooth connectivity. So, and I knew it was like 4:30 in the morning. Like nobody saw this, right? It's not during daylight traffic. So I started doing a kind of a head to toe assessment first because I'm on a bike. Like I'm not going to try and move around if I just broke my neck. So I started doing a head to toe assessment. My lid is still on. My face mask is still on. Like everything feels okay here. And then I get down below my waist, and then I noticed that my chaps, because it was October, and my pants were off. And so I was like, all right, well, I got pants in the middle of this wreck, but so are my boxers. And then when I lift kind of my leg, I could see blood on my left leg, but what I felt was kind of like my leg broke and it was just hanging. So I felt maybe I can't see past that part of my leg because it's broke and just hanging down there. So I could see my bike at that point when I tried to look at my legs. So that my bike was, my head was facing away from my bike. So when I looked down at my legs, I could see my bike between my legs down there. And so I started to turn to crawl towards my bike so I get closer to my phone so I could call 911. And I got about 90 degrees turning towards my bike in a couple feet, and I just couldn't move anymore. Like I didn't have the energy in me. And so I just kind of nodded off for a second, and then my eyes open. Like I remember being able to see again, and then I hear somebody say, "Hey, I called 911." I was like, all right. So then I knew help was on the way at least. And at that point, I just tried to kind of keep myself relaxed. I didn't feel any pain yet. So that was a great thing. Like as soon as that impact, my brain just cut off all pain. I didn't feel any pain. I could feel tired, right? And so I knew I was obviously bleeding. So I'm off getting tired. So I knew I couldn't fall asleep. But at the same time, I'm trying to conserve my energy. So I close my eyes. I can kind of hear what's going on. And then I open my eyes again, and I can start seeing red and blue lights. Close my eyes again, open them up. And then I remember like first responders there and them talking to me, and they're asking me questions. And I know they're asking me questions, trying to get me to engage them to stay awake. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, so I started just like, I pointed at my bracelet that I wore, right? That has like, next to kin information, my blood type.
Yeah.
And then I passed back out, and then I kind of wake back up and feel all these hands. And then at that point, I was out. And I woke up the next day in the hospital.
Do you think that the time that you spent in the military made you a little bit more self-aware and mentally strong to not go into shock and totally freak out with that happening compared to the average human?
So I went into shock. My body went into shock. My mentality didn't. Right. My body immediately went into shock. That's why I didn't feel any pain. Otherwise, I mean, so, I heard the guy when he was talking to the first responder asked where my leg was. And I could hear the guy that called 911, who ended up being a truck driver, said it's over there in the road. So I had heard while I was on scene that my leg was ripped off and in the road. When I talked to the first responder a month later, to the cop, and poor kid, he was like, dude, I called them both. And the first one on the scene was like, dude, I'm a rookie. And he's like, and that was the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, all right. Yeah. And he's like, man, I got up there, and he's like, dude, I didn't have a tourniquet on me. And he's like, the other guy got there, and he's like, yeah, your tourniquet. And he's like, you were sitting up trying to help me put your tourniquet on your leg. And he's like, and I kept trying to tell you lay down. So I didn't remember that part. I only learned that from him. But that goes to show like the muscle memory, right? I mean, tourniquets are one thing we always carried. We always carried in the same spot. You always use your buddies on him that we used to have yours for you, and apply them. I mean, you practice everything to make it muscle memory, because that's the only way you're able to sometimes push through functions depending on how chaotic it gets. So yeah, I went into shock because that's not something you can control. I mean, that's your brain, that's your nervous system that does that. But the mindset after the fact to do it once over, make sure I wasn't going to injure myself worse before moving myself, and then having the wherewithal to know that, all right, you're bleeding, like you don't try not to fall asleep, and then obviously to sit up and tourniquet myself definitely helped.
Yeah. So with that, how long was your, I guess, recovery process with the amputation, and how did that affect you physically, mentally, or emotionally during that time?
So I smile because I was walking with a walker that day.
Holy cow.
I woke up so the weather was bad enough they couldn't flight me. They had to get an ambulance, take me to the closest hospital. They weren't high enough trauma level to handle me. So they just stabilized me. They still couldn't get the helicopter to fly from hospital to hospital even. So they had to get a mobile trauma unit, which is basically a semi-truck pulled ambulance. And so they came out, they had to drive an hour and some change from one hospital to the other, pick me up, and then drive me to the other one. And by the time they got me to the hospital, they had given me 3 units of blood. And then, but I was walking with a walker that day. And then from there is where it got hard, because that first day it felt okay. Like I woke up, my wife was there, like my club brothers were there, and they're like, you lost your leg. And I snapped back into it pretty quick. There wasn't like this, oh my, where am I? What happened? I woke up and I knew. And I saw it, and it's like, all right, well, I mean, there's no putting it back on. All right. So intellectually, I knew that there's no going back. This isn't something that I can, beg to have fixed. Right. Like, please let me walk again. No, it ain't fucking happening.
Yeah.
But I was up that day, but then I developed an infection. So I was laying in the hospital, and the pain started on like day 2. And then from there, it became the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. They had me even with an epidural in my back. They had me on that, and then I could feel it getting worse. And so then they found that I had developed an abscess in my leg, so I had to go back going for another operation, and then it opened me back up, clean the infection out, and then let it heal open, put a whole PICC line and everything. And so the pain was awful. And it was a mix. They talk about phantom pain, but it's legit. It's wild, right? And so like the best way I can explain it is your brain, inside your brain is trying to make a telephone call, and inside there is a switchboard operator, right? And so it's like the brain is trying to communicate to a muscle, old switchboard operator, right, from back in the day. You know, who are you calling for? Please hold, pulls the cable out, puts it in the hole, and connects the call. Well, with trauma, because it just severed those connections. So it's like it took all those cables, all those phone lines, and ripped them out of that switchboard. So now my brain is trying to communicate to a limb that it doesn't know is gone. And then what it's doing is it's, you know, the switchboard operator is taking a cable and doesn't know where to put it and tries to put it there, right? And then it sends back a pain signal because there's no connection, and sends back this pain signal. For mine, it's like a snapshot of the trauma. So I would get it like a crushing feeling in my foot. So what we figured happened, when you pulled that picture from the guardrail, is
he is going to try. I'm not sure if it'll. There we go. Yeah.
So you have that part with the yellow strip that's vertical. I hit that straight on. You can see where I detached it from the base and then pushed it back about a foot or two. So we figure I smashed into that straight on where that yellow stripe is, and it broke my tib fib halfway down between my knee and my ankle. And then my left boot caught on the underside of that guardrail. And so when I became a projectile with my boot caught, it basically just ripped at the point of least resistance, which is where I broke my tib fib. So it just ripped it apart right there. I didn't send you guys a picture of that, but I have the picture of my leg too.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
We're good.
There's a wrestler named Buff Bagwell who recently had his leg amputated. He ended up getting in a car accident a couple of years ago and really messed up his knee and his ankle. And he also talked about right after surgery about having that phantom pain. He's like, I still feel my leg. He's like, I look down, it's not there, but I mean, mentally, I can still feel it.
To me, there's like phantom pain and sensation. I always have phantom sensation. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it feels like it's numb. You know, you sit cross-legged on the couch or whatever, sit on your foot, it becomes numb. You're trying, and you're just all tingly. It's like static. I feel that for the whole thing, all the way down to my toes, and I can even move my foot. I can sway. I can move my toes like that aren't there just from that numb feeling. Wow. But then the phantom pain, it was so bad. It feels like that there's a taser in the bottom of my foot, or in the middle of where my tib fib broke and where it ripped apart, or in the knee. And it's either crushing feeling or like I'm being tased. And it's enough that it would holler out. I mean, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's all in the brain. Yeah. It's the brain and the nervous system saying there's a problem. Yeah.
Well, I have to commend you for going through that and not doing what some people would do, is use that type of situation as a woe is me and pity themselves for the rest of their life and feel sorry for themselves, and never try to use that experience in their journey to progress as a person and become better and learn from it, and also still live their life and have a good quality of life. So that attests a lot to your character and your morals and integrity as a person, and how you want to be perceived as a person. It shows just your innate mental strength that you have. With that being said, when you were recovering, did they ever put you on opioids or anything to, like, any prescription drugs that you could have gotten addicted to, and it could have changed your life? Or did you know, was there a certain stopping point for you where you were on them and knew you didn't need them anymore?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm in pain management even to today because of just how bad things are. Between that and then just being in the Marines, right? How deteriorated it make my entire just body and nervous system. Yeah. And so, but I'm lucky enough that I don't get addicted to them. I still have, like, they have me on, they still have me on pain meds, but they have me on slow release. But I still have like the oxycodones for when it gets bad, but I almost never use them. So I'm lucky enough that I can have it but not take it.
And you have if I'm mistaken, you have a bone-in prosthesis, right?
Yeah. So that came, down the road. I was out of the hospital in 2 weeks after my amputation. Typically it's 3 weeks. It was at least 2, and then they want to send you to rehab for at least a week inpatient. But I told them, I was like, yeah, I can't do it. Like, I got to get out of here. I got to see my kids one time. I stay home dad of 4. My baby was 6 months old.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to get home. So they let me go home because my insurance had where I could have a nurse come by and make sure everything was looking good. And I did end up having some other operations, from infection and stuff. But then after some time, I was able to get the bone anchored prosthesis. They wanted me to be in a prosthetic for at least a year before they would do that, because you have to, God, you gotta love the American insurance system, right? Yeah. A socket is the primary means of prosthesis, regardless of situation, because it's the cheapest, right? Less operations, less, etc. Yeah. Long term, the bone anchored is cheaper because I'm not having to go get a socket every couple of months, right? Because your volume change. Yep. So they told me I had to be at least a year in a socket. I went and climbed the Mayan pyramids in Belize and Guatemala 2 weeks after getting my prosthetic, just because I had to.
Why not?
So I had a lot of those days. I'm not gonna lie. The days we talked about were like, woe is me, and fall into that trap. Now, I did have those days. For probably the first year until I got into dog handling, I had a lot of pitfalls where I was more focused on what I couldn't do anymore. And it wasn't until it was before I got my bone anchor prosthesis, but when I went and got my dog and then went and got handler trained up at Baden. Yeah, it's Veto. Right. So, amazing. So the VA will not provide service dogs. You gotta get your own dog, and then you gotta get your own dog trained. So this is where the Marine Corps Scout Sniper Association came in, right? I've been a member since back in the day, but I hit him up and I said, I got this Doberman. I want to get him service trained, but it's ridiculously expensive, and the wait list for different organizations to get one donated are exceptionally long. And then there's a lot of restrictions on that too. A lot of breed restrictions. A lot of places, they want you to have the lab, they want you to have the retriever, right? That's just kind of the typical one. For me, that wasn't going to cut it, right? I wanted something that I grew up with retrievers. I wanted something that didn't shed like that. I wanted something that was strong enough to pull me in my wheelchair, big enough to brace me and help me walk. I wanted one that was visually enough of a deterrent that nobody would physically try to target the handicapped guy or his family. Like, I just had a list of things, and Doberman ended up fitting the bill. So I contacted the Sniper Association, and they reached out to a friend over at Special Operations Wounded Warrior. And so they have a connection up there with Baden Canine in Ontario, Canada. So the owner had actually immigrated down during Vietnam and enlisted into the Marine Corps to go overseas and fight. So that goes to tell you the type of man and family that they are. This guy had no reason to besides, hey, this is serious, and these are our neighbors, and he wouldn't help. So anyway, they have a program. Special Operations Wounded Warrior has a canine program, and they sent me out there to Baden Canine with some of their guys, and they kind of did an assessment again. One day assessed Veto to see what his service capability was, because I didn't get them from him, right? So they had to check out, make sure genetics and all the standards are met, that he had the wherewithal to be able to kind of have that capability. So they did an assessment of me and him over a week. They had to assess me too for my handler capability. And then from there, we were good to go. We entered the training pipeline. And still, we go up to Baden, up to Canada, and do training, continual training.
And for anybody that doesn't know, you can follow the U.S. Sniper Association on Facebook. That's how I found Aaron, actually. So they post a lot of stuff that I wasn't even aware of that happens. So it's pretty cool. So I'm interested, how has all of this that you've endured How's it impacted your family, and what role did your family play in your recovery?
So my family was, well, one thing with my kids, right? It's a very scary injury. I mean, you're talking about loss of limb. It's aesthetic. I mean, it's right there in your face. And my pain level was out of this world. I mean, once they had me off the epidural and all that, everything came away. The first time they took me off, they had to put it back in. I was like, I can't stand this right now. And I got a pretty good pain tolerance. And so when I got back home, I couldn't even have my stump, right, my residual limb on anything that had any kind of a crease. I couldn't even sit in a regular chair if there was a stitch there, because it hurt that bad. So I had to kind of bring my kids into it, because I didn't want them to be scared of me, because I'd be hollering in pain. I'd be sweating. I'd be just having a hard time, just miserable, but I want to be home with my kids or at home with my family. So I got them involved in my care. With my leg healing open from the infection, we had to pull out different packing material twice a day. It had to be clean, and we're pulling out just 2 foot worth of gauze that's stuffed into all the way up what's left of my quad. So we got my kids involved in that stuff. Like my kids would put on the rubber gloves. I had to get shots for blood thinners so that prevent clotting. Then I had to get like all these other shots so that, I had my little baby at the time, 1-year-old, and my like 7-year-old arguing over who got to give daddy the shot stomach, and then they would kind of help, just pull out the packing or, just put fresh dressings on, because I wanted them to understand that I was going to be okay, but that this wasn't something they had to be scared of, right? I wanted them to understand it. To me, if you're scared of something, or if you're a bully, it's typically because you don't understand. You just don't understand, so that you become scared of it, or you become a bully, right? So I got them involved, and that helped them a lot. They would help push my wheelchair. They were there for pretty much for all of it. Batting canine. When I started getting involved in training my service dog, I got my kids involved, right? Because so from there, that's kind of where my story really started to change into who I am now.
Because now you're into advocacy and mentorship.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to start to focus on volunteering and helping others? Was it just because of the motorcycle accident and how that changed your life, or was it a multitude of things?
Actually, no. So the way it kind of came about was after I got my dog Veto, right? He's a great looking dog, and you don't see dogs often. Yeah. And so when you see him, it's crazy how many people come up and talk to me, right? Because otherwise I was just reserved, didn't really want to. I could be sociable if I wanted to, but otherwise forget about it. And then especially once I lost my leg and the challenge that came with that, like I said, there was a lot of that. These are the things I can no longer do. That's kind of where my mentality was. I beat myself up because I couldn't do X, Y, and Z anymore. But then once I started training and working with Veto and became a dog handler from a wheelchair, and then, like all of a sudden I trained him how to pull me in a wheelchair. And then people were like, I've never seen that before. And then even Baden was like, holy cow, like that's new. We could use this. And then that changed my mentality from, okay, I can do things because of the way I am now. Right. So it set a different standard. I stopped comparing myself to how I was before. And I said, okay, here's an opportunity for me to learn new things as I am now, to kind of just, one, prove myself like I can do these things, but two, now that, especially with Veto and people come and talk to me, it's more of a visual thing. Like I can show other people that these things can be done. Yeah. And so that's how I got into volunteering was, once my kids all started going back to school, then, I was a stay-at-home dad. I'm like, dude, what am I going to do? People really love Veto. And so, I was like, you know what, I used to joke with my kids, you're going to go to school and then you're just going to be in class one day and all of a sudden you're just going to see me there. Right. Like I'm just going to show up.
And you help kids with disabilities, correct?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. I thought you did.
No.
Okay. So do you volunteer? I thought I read something.
Yeah, I do volunteer. So I started out, I was like, hey, I'll just, go and volunteer for sit there at the book fair. Right. And then so when I showed up, and I went through the course and all that. I didn't bring my dog. But when I came to volunteer, I brought him, and they're like, holy cow, you got this amazing service dog. We've been trying to get a classroom dog for the exceptional children's classroom.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they were denied. What do you think about me and the teacher? Maybe you can volunteer over there. And so that's how I got into volunteering with special education kids.
Okay.
Because for me, I wanted to volunteer at school because some kid can make fun of me in a wheelchair with one leg, right? And it's not going to hurt my feelings because I'm not their age. I'm not 12. I'm not worried about what a sixth grader says to me or an eighth grader. So for me, I wanted my kids to see that you don't have to let something like what I was going through or my injury not like make you about yourself, right? You could still look out for other people no matter what you're going through. You can still care about other people, and you can still treat other people with respect, and you can still help. And so the volunteering, I wanted to show my kids what you could do, right? And so it became a thing of, for my kids, I can't give up, because if I give up at any point, then they can say, all I have to do is just go until this point, because dad made it to this point and then he gave up. So as long as I make it to there, I'm good. I can give up and not, right? Like not feel bad. I don't want to set that bar for them.
Yeah.
Right? I want to push them to like chase some unattainable goal. I'm not trying to make them into who I was or wanted to be. But I didn't want to give them, like, I wanted to give them a good bar. Like, hey, you can make it. Dad made it.
And with all of the things you do with volunteering and the advocacy and everything that you're part of, because you have your hands in so many pans of things you're doing, it just shows the level of gratitude you have towards life itself and the level of selflessness that you show to others through that. And I think that's highly commendable, but I think you're setting a good example for the kids out there that you're working with, including your children and your family. So again, I give you huge accolades for that as well. I wanted to go back a little bit to the innovation and purpose part of your prosthetics. So you give presentations about prosthetics and engineering innovations. So what excites you most about advancements in this field?
So advancements in the field are kind of, for lower limb prosthetics, in my opinion, they're not very advanced to this day. Like, there's some electronics in it, yes. However, in the case of upper limb, which I understand you need to have dexterity in your fingers and pressure and be able to do things differently than you do with lower limb. So a lot of cases, like in a socket, is very rudimentary. Like, you feel like a pirate, right? That just stuffs his leg in something and you just peg leg around. Because at its basis, that's what you're still doing. You're still just sticking your leg into something and then you go from there. Mm-hmm. And then the US, we're incredibly far behind Australia. Australia is like leading the world in prosthetics. Austria, of course, Germany. The implant I have is version 1. And Australia, this is started by, back in like the 80s. So for us, we're just really kind of getting into it. Whereas the rest of the world in Europe and Australia, they're on version 2. They're on a whole other implant system. But the FDA has only improved this one. And then even then, like I said, you have to demonstrate failure in a socket before you'll even get considered for the operation, because insurance doesn't want to pay for it.
You would think with all the advancements we have with robotics, say like Tesla, for instance, with all of that, you would think with prosthetics, we would be far more advanced than we are at this point. So that's interesting that you say that. I thought we were way more advanced than we are.
So conceptually, and what's in R&D phase, I'm sure we have incredible things. I mean, like that picture where I'm hooked up to all these wires, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing there is I'm wearing a prosthetic. That prosthetic is a robotic knee. And so it's actually on the back side, like that black piece behind the metal, silver metal part is where the knee is located. So what I'm doing is I'm basically just walking in it so that they can collect data on fail recovery. So what they would do is initiate, like I tripped, and then they would map, I would have all these sensors on me, map how my sound side would recover, and then put that data into the robotic knee so that if my sound side tripped, my robotic side would try to execute the same type of recovery that my real leg did. And so it was just me being an amputee, right? So that became one of the things that I can do because I am the way I am now. I couldn't do that before when I had both my legs, right? Like I'm more valuable in some instances because I have without my leg. So, what I do for NC State and UNC is I just wear, I wear the different things they're working on so that they can collect data on the prosthetics. So there's a bunch of cool stuff out there. It's just not commercialized yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, right? It's like, what do you need to be able to do with your leg versus what do you need to be able to do with your hand? So focus and a lot of the research and a lot of the money is on that, and rightfully so. I mean, I tell people all the time, I can open a jar with both my, with my hands. I can't open a jar with my legs. Like that becomes a whole other level of difficulty.
Yeah.
So, and I said like, hey man, like I'd rather lose a leg than an arm, honestly. So that's why you tend to see a lot of lag, in my opinion, for lower limb prosthetics. Now, what I do for the third school, ECU, is there aren't many of us with the bone anchor prosthesis. So a lot of these physical therapy students or, even these prosthetists or orthotists, they've never seen one before besides on a computer, never seen one in person. So for them to be able to, so basically I'm just there because I am the way I am, right? I'm able to get up there and say, here's me, pull my leg off. I don't mind. I can pass it around, I give them a slideshow. I show them the picture of my severed leg and I let them answer all kinds of questions. And so basically I'm just there to be a visual aid to kind of draw together some of their things that they were able to conceptualize. And then of course it is very different from where most people that use prosthesis are. So, for people that are considering orthotics or prosthetics, I go with my prosthetist so they can kind of see where the field is going. All right. Because it's pretty cool. Again, it's pretty neat to see it come straight out of, it looks almost like a lug nut, but it comes straight out of my leg. And so the prosthetic is just tied into my skeletal structure. It's incredible.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine having a limb lost and then I'm trying to imagine what it'd be like to have a prosthetic and walking with a prosthetic, but not actually having your leg there and what that would feel like.
Yeah, it's different. So, in a socket, the problem with the socket is your body is not meant to hold itself up by its soft tissue. All right. Mm-hmm. Your body is meant to hold itself by its skeletal structure. Mm-hmm. So anything that's on the soft tissue side, right? That's why people get bed sores, pressure sores, because you're having this weight on your soft tissue that's not supposed to be there for a extended period of time. So you get it has a lot of pain. And the way you carry your weight is because they don't want the distal end of your residual limb to be just straight weight bearing, because that would just destroy the end of it. They have what's called a bike seat. So they have this hard fiberglass that goes up into basically the seat of your crotch. And that's where you hold your weight. And so this thing grabs, it pinches. And then now you have half your body weight or more at times on a different soft tissue spot right there, and in your private part. So that's absolutely miserable. And then you're sweating in it because nothing breathes. It's just miserable. Now doing it this way is a lot better. You get osteoperception, which means you start to get a little bit of spatial awareness as to where your prosthetic is. And then I get some vibration feedback. So I can feel things that vibrate up my prosthetic, and I can feel it into my bone, and then it gives me sensation. Whereas before you wouldn't really feel anything. So I got a lot of new capabilities. I lost some, and I do have a constant infection risk because that's always open to my femur, but I've gained a world from doing it.
So throughout this, our show obviously is about resetting and rising and resilience and all that. So how do you personally define resilience for you with everything that you've endured in your life? So
once I lost my leg, I started really getting hard into trying to learn about myself, because I learned, I had a lot of conversations in my own head throughout my recovery period. And so I started diving into a lot of books, a lot of self-help, a lot of different psychological books, a couple of different ones that it really got me thinking. So better people have come before me and have said things before me. But one of the ones that really kind of helps me was Viktor Frankl said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. All right. I didn't choose for my leg to be detached from my body, despite my actions having consequences, right? And I can't choose to give myself anything back, but I can choose how I continue to push forward the way I am now. And so that kind of, between that and then an old Dakota Indian proverb that said, we will be known forever by the tracks we leave. So, when I almost died, I was like, what would they have said, in your eulogy at your funeral? And a lot of it was just past tense. He was a Marine. He did this. And there was nothing I was really doing at the moment, right? That wasn't self-serving. So, I wanted to just show that for me, resilience was being able to push forward, find a path, find a new way, regardless of what the circumstance is, right? Knowing you can't change that, but what you can do is where you go from there. And then just trying to, I don't know, resiliency is tough. It's just having the ability to just not stop, just keep going, keep pushing. You can always make it. There's days where the best I can do is make it till I go to bed. And then I'll wake up tomorrow and try again. And that's okay. Resiliency doesn't have to be something sexy. It doesn't have to be always, bountiful. Sometimes it's just you're resilient enough to make it to bedtime. Try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Without your training, do you think your recovery and your attitude would have been different?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, without my training, I might not have survived, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so that to begin with. And then from there, I was stubborn to begin with, but then even more so after becoming a Marine, right? And there's been times, in those woe or me moments, there's been times where Marine buddies like, dude, just remember, who you are. Remember what made you a Marine and pull yourself up by your straps, right? You're like, I get it, bro. Like, that sounds amazing, but I promise you, it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah. Sometimes I find myself doing that. I'll give people advice, and I'm trying to be little Miss Positive and kind and understanding and empathetic, and not realizing that at the moment, it's all nice and everything for them to hear that, but they don't want a part of it because their mindset's somewhere else. But it's still, at the end of the day, helps somewhat. It's better to have positivity in your corner than negativity who's going to sit there and wallow with you. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So for someone who is listening, who might be going through their own life-altering challenge at the moment, what's your message for them?
So my message is find your why. All right. I had to find my why. My why was my kids. I'm lucky enough that because I was a stay-at-home dad, that we had already been able to make it work financially. But then I'd already established more of a different connection than I had with them as a working father, right? So I was blessed enough to have done that during COVID. But so they were my why. They were my why. I need to get home, be faster than you normally let people home, and why. So I mean, at times I haven't committed suicide, to be blunt, right? Because at the worst, I won't kill myself because I don't want to push that trauma onto them, mm-hmm. right? So for me, I would rather drag myself through my worst day every day until the ripe old age of when I finally pass away, just so that they have me and don't have to deal with the trauma of me just not being able to take anymore, right? So find your why. That's going to get you through the hard days sometimes. For me, being able to learn about myself and understand myself mentally, why my brain does certain things, right? Like a great book is called The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. It's a great book because that one really helped me kind of put some of the, understand that, okay, if I start feeling this way, or if my body starts to react with the breathing this way, or my thoughts start going this direction, this is why it's happening. This is the part of my brain that's doing it, and this is why it's doing it. And so for me, being able to intellectualize and understand my own body's processes, all my body's mental processes, how my nervous system works, then I could sense those things early on, like you're starting to spiral or you're starting to, this pain is experiencing, and then head it off at the pass. So, find your why and know yourself. I mean, the more you know about whatever you have going on, then the more prepared you kind of feel to head it off.
Yeah. And as someone who, like I told you before, my dad served in the Navy and he committed suicide in 1988.
Yeah.
I really respect your outlook and your feelings towards like what life is supposed to mean, which is find your why and find your purpose and keep moving forward no matter what life throws at you. I think we need to be reminded of that quite frequently by people. That's part of why we have this show, is to have people like you on here that could give some perspective and outlook to people that may be suffering or going through something at the moment and they think their life might be over, or this is the hardest thing they've ever been through, not realizing that there could be some light at the end of the tunnel. Like you said, you are sometimes experiencing some of the worst pain. You've been through some of the worst stuff and you've come out stronger and more ahead, and you've spun it in a positive way to look at what you can do for other people and what you've done versus what you can't do. And so that is something to be really extremely proud of. So with that being said, what's next for you, Aaron? What mission are you on now, or what's your next thing that you're looking forward to?
So for me, my new, I guess my purpose that I found is philanthropy, right? So I work for the Marine Corps Scout Sniper Association as the VP of Family Care. So I'm there to look after Marine Scout snipers and their families, right? And a lot of vet organizations and some of the big player ones, I won't name them specifically, but we had a guy whose wife, he was a Marine Scout sniper, he's out. His wife got stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, HR+2, and was very serious, very dire. And he was a former Marine Scout sniper. Now he's in the civilian world. He's one man, one truck, one trailer, construction business. So the guy is just trying to make his own, right? Work for himself, make his own name in the world, take care of his family. They have a young daughter who was 1 at the time, going on to 2. And they had all they had was his work truck. So she has these appointments, which of course to go see a good oncologist, you never live close enough to one, right? So they're having this huge commute. They have one vehicle. He reached out to all these organizations and they said, "We're sorry. If you had the cancer, we'd be able to help you." But because it was his wife, right, she didn't serve. Wow. It just wasn't something that fell under their purview. So for the Marine Corps Scout Sniper Association, we try to do what we can as quick as we can to make sure that we take care of our guys. We pride ourselves on getting them to yes as fast as possible and trying to find a resolution. We're not as well funded as those other big ones, so sometimes we have to get a little bit creative, but we're able to take care of them. And so we created my position from there, which was I'm dedicated to, if something is going on with the families or if the families need something, they have me to come to. And then we have somebody dedicated to the vet. So I continue that, continue to push that. And we have our first Gold Star family retreat going on this December. So we have a lot of new initiatives going out and trying to fundraise. I'm volunteering at my kids' school still. This is the 3rd year. So I still work with the special needs class at middle school. I go there every week. I did my kids pre-K and I did kindergarten. Now I'm in 1st grade. So I help with reading groups there. And then I helped with 4th and then 5th grade, also doing reading groups. But now that my kid is over in the middle school, so now I just have 1st grade and middle school that I do. Plus I do Unified Champions Special Olympics.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, once again, I want to thank you for your service to our country, yes. First and foremost. So God bless you and your family. You are one very strong individual. I can say probably out of all the guests we've had so far, you are definitely the definition of strong. So mentally and physically. And I'm very happy that you decided to come on the show and share your story with us. And I'm excited to see what the future has to hold for you and continue following your journey and see what else you do with everything. So I wanted to personally say thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, Aaron. Have a good night. Thanks for coming on, brother.
All right, you guys too. Take care.
Right. See ya.
Bye.
Whew.
That was a lot. I could talk, like, we could have talked to him for a while, but I try to keep the guests around an hour-ish or so.
There's a lot more we could have.
We could have touched on a lot more with him. He had a lot to say. So, and he's involved in so much stuff. He's kind of one of those people, it's hard not to get unraveled in what he's talking about, because he's just his story is so touching and so endearing, and it's so motivating. I mean, we run across people daily that it's a very good reminder of the people we run across daily that always have something negative to say, or they have to point out something negative in their day.
Yep.
Or they always have complaining to do. And Aaron is one of those people that if you're around someone like that, it's a very good reminder of what you should be thankful for in your life and what you should not take for granted, because like you said, it changed his life. But I love his outlook and perspective, where instead of looking at all of it as a negative conundrum for the rest of his life, he's trying to spin it into a positive and do something resourceful with it, which is incredibly amazing. He's probably one of the most genuine, humble guys out there that I've personally come across and gotten to know. And like he said, the US Sniper Association does a lot for people out there that I don't think many people are aware of. So, he was a very good guest. I've been super excited. I've been talking to him for a few weeks off and on, and I know he's been excited to come on the show and share his story. And we have a few more veterans lined up in the months ahead. And we'll hear about their stories, and their stories are just as powerful. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me how being in any branch of the armed forces can, like you said, if he had not served in the military, he may not have handled that situation as well as he did. He may have handled it worse. Or
1,000%. Yeah. I mean,
so it just goes to show you how mentally tough those guys are. And I honestly think we don't give the armed forces enough credit sometimes for their service to our country and everything that they endure and go through. We could have went and talked to him for many, many more minutes about serving in the armed forces and coming back as a civilian, and how much that creates, it can create tension and hostility within your own home, or being in civilization around other people and trying to readjust. I'm sure he would have a lot more to say about that as well. So I think he was a good guest. That gives me hope for our future guests that are going to be on here too, that are veterans. And we have some really standout, guests in the next few months coming up. Like I said, we're booked until January 1st, and I'm still working on getting new ones for the new year as well. But next week, Rob will be on vacation, so we're going to pre-record next Tuesday's episode tomorrow. And we're going to go over, like I said at the beginning of the show, we're going to go over something personal with me that not many people know about, where I've dealt with body dysmorphia my entire life, which led to an eating disorder post second time of having cancer. And it was a period of my life that I've never been really willing to share with many people. A few know about it, and I've kind of left that out with my story, but I'm willing to share now and be an open book, because that's what this show is about. And I'm hoping it'll help inspire some other people. But yeah, he was a great guest. So I don't know how you can really top that. Yeah, Pam, he's very inspiring. So it just makes me step back and think, I know Rob's going through some stuff right now, and I have some things that I'm going through, and it just makes me take a step back and really realize what I need to be thankful for. And I guess not focus so much on the what ifs and the whatnots, and focus on the present day and what I have currently.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, I've been out of a job for almost 2 months now, but I mean, we still have food. We still have a house. We still have gas in the car. Where I'm fortunate that my wife makes enough money to support us with the very little that the state pays out for unemployment, which we're thankful for that too. I mean, anything helps. But so yeah, I mean, I could bitch and moan and be woe is me and all that, but it's not going to change anything, right? Like it's not going to get
to me. I check in with you frequently, and I ask you,
which I appreciate.
You're very positive and upbeat still, and you really you never get towards the negativity part or the negative aspect of it. I call those people that they're the thumb soul suckers. They suck your soul out of your thumb.
Yeah.
When you contact them to see how they're doing, and it's just a whole boiling pot of negativity. And there's days where I can't. I'm like, you can go with me all you want. You can say whatever you want. You can do it. I have multiple people like that in my life. I think I'm like everyone's outlet to just unload. And it's fine. But after a while, you're like, what about me? I have my own stuff going on too. So, but I mean, we as humans, we all go through things in life that are hard and challenging. And it's people like Aaron that remind us of how quick life can change. It's crazy that people often forget, like tomorrow is not guaranteed at all. So if we cause ourselves to worry about the future that's not here yet, and then we hold resentment towards or grudges towards our past, and we're forgetting what we have in front of us in the present day. And I think he's set a new standard for me now when it comes to motivation and pushing through. And there's times like I did a workout yesterday and I had no ambition whatsoever to get on that spinning bike at all. I had tons of chores to do afterwards and I didn't want to. I just wanted to come home and lay on the couch. It'd been a long 10-hour workday and I was physically tired and beat. And as soon as I got on that bike, it's like Aaron said, there's some innate sense of self that comes through and tells you to just keep going and keep pushing. And then once you're done, you have this whole new outlook and perspective on yourself that reminds you how strong you are. So I do believe it's not just serving in the military that changed him for life. It's definitely that accident, and it's made him into an even better person than he already was. So.
Well, I love the find your why. Like that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. And he's exactly right. I mean, you could feel bad for yourself. You could use that as a crutch, no pun intended. But find your reason to survive. And it was his kids. And he said resilience isn't always sexy. Well, being a stay-home dad is sexy to me. That's one of the coolest things you could ever do. It is be able to spend time with your kids. And the fact that he works with families, because let's face it, we could get into it. The VA sucks. Like, I know they're calling for
before on the show.
I have plenty of relatives and friends that can't get dick out of the VA, and I'm glad that they have something for the families, especially the Scout snipers. Because I mean, you got to think about snipers. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that serve combat, but you're looking at the other end of a scope. You're looking down the end of a scope, and you're taking somebody's life.
Yeah,
you can't unsee that.
Yeah,
it's like the video of Charlie Kirk. Like, I'll never be able to get that out of my head. Like, I'm always, and you can obviously have PTSD just from something like that.
Yeah,
you got to think about what they have to go through when they get home and try to adjust to daily life. Like he said, like he needed something to excite him. That's why he got out and he was riding. Like, you need something to kind of replace that adrenaline rush, and it's just, you want to come home and do chores after, you were in active combat. Like, okay. Like, that's why so many people have a hard time getting adjusted. Back to daily life. But the fact that he works with families and all that, and has such a positive attitude, given what he's been through, he could easily use that as an excuse to just stay drugged up all the time. You know what I mean? Just get addicted to pain pills, start taking other drugs, drinking. He's a hell of a guy, man. He really is. I have so much respect for him.
So glad I found him.
Me too.
Anyways, well, we'll let everybody go and call that the show tonight. And then we will see you guys next Tuesday, but it won't be live. It'll be pre-recorded, but you can still leave us comments. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page. You can find us on all the other audio podcast platforms. And then we also have the private group page on Facebook. Find us on TikTok and Instagram. And if you have anybody that that has an inspiring story that you think would be good for us to share on our podcast, you can reach out to me personally on Messenger or Instagram or TikTok. And you can also email us at resetandrisepodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. And we appreciate you guys as always. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.